Thank you, Zamo. Yes, it is. It is an interesting topic, and yeah, I'll invite comments there on the chat. Yay, Kobini is here.
Hi.
I think I've been struggling, Kobini. It's my first time doing an Instagram
Oh,
live, so you know how it
okay.
is.
No problem. We're here now, and yeah, thank you for the invite, and thank you to. I can see lots of love coming through while I was waiting for you to accept. I can see a lot of love coming through in terms
Yeah,
of the conversation. People excited about it.
yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think it's going to be an awesome conversation that we're having here today.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I just want to firstly formally welcome everyone who has joined. Happy International Women's Day. It's International Women's Day today. So yeah, happy. I'm just gonna stop waving now because I was waving at people while I was waiting, but I guess I won't be able to do that now. But I see people are joining, and thank you guys. So today we're going to be talking about, I'll tell you about the topic later, but I just want to firstly formally introduce Kovini. So I've got with me Kovini Moodley. I think you all know Kovini. We've been collaborating quite a lot, and she's an amazing chartered accountant. But just to formally introduce her, Kovini is the founder of Boss Babes of South Africa. She is a chartered accountant. She's doing amazing things for the profession. You know, she's a game changer. She's so many things. A multifaceted chartered accountant. She's got more than 15 years of experience in corporate. So you're in good hands today when you talk about this topic because we've got experience, regarding what we're talking about today. But again, Kobini is a lot of things. She's a podcaster now. She is a mentor, a speaker, and recently a coach. So formally, welcome, Kobini.
Thank you, Zinsha. I have been waiting all day to have this conversation with you. Happy International Women's Day to everyone who's joining us, and please be a part of this conversation. At Boss Babes of South Africa, we're very much about a community, and I know Zinhle is also focused on community-driven initiatives. So we'd really appreciate if you could, after this, share your story with us or share any thoughts on today's live. And you don't have to put it out on the public forum. You can send us individual direct messages that be more comfortable. But yeah, I think today I had an incredible day to start with. I had quite a few media engagements that I was asked to speak at and lend my voice and also just share my latest initiative called #Me3, which doesn't have much mystery to it, but I think it's very closely linked to what Zinhle and I will be talking about today. And I also just wanted to give some context on, how we came about this topic. So what we have is actually a few coaches that are, I want to say in my social circle, all CAs, all offering coaching, mentoring, services. And through our discussion, the one thing that kept popping up every time we would collaborate or connect, there's about 12 of us in this group at present, was just around how the young professionals are almost, experiencing a load of harassment, of bullying, some even sexual harassment. And, being the people that we are, we couldn't just sit back and say, oh, sorry, or leave your job. We decided to actually, create this movement and have more transformative conversations, because if we don't have real conversations about what really is happening out there, it becomes very challenging to actually say we're driving transformative change when people are in environments where they're being bullied and they're being harassed and they're not being treated fairly.
True. Yeah, no, thank you, Kovidi, for that. You're touching a very important topic. And yes, today we're going to be talking about workplace bullying, which has been a theme. As Kovini said, we are mentors, we are coaches, and there's various other coaches that we are collaborating with. And there is a theme really around young professionals, around workplace bullying. And with the mentees that we're dealing with, they just don't know how to respond, to workplace bullying. Some of them hop from job to job, but really that's not the solution. We want to empower people to know how to respond to this situation. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today, based on our experiences with the people that we mentor and coach. And as Kovini has said, please join in the conversation, put your comments there on the chat. I'll be looking at them, and yeah, let this be interactive. So, Kovini, I think, yeah, I've got a few questions for you because, yeah, you've got a lot of experience. I'm learning a lot from you, even when it comes to social media. You're teaching me
Right.
a lot of things. But, yeah, I've got some questions for you, because we know, me and you know about workplace bullying because it's something that we are now dealing a lot with from the experiences of our mentees and the people that we coach. But a lot of people out there do not even know what workplace bullying is. Some people might be experiencing workplace bullying and they don't even know that they are
Mm.
experiencing it because it might, for example, be a norm in the workplace. So tell us about that. Can you just briefly tell us what is workplace bullying? Do you have examples for us? And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question because through my mentorship journey, like I said, I've been doing mentorship for more than 3 years, but in the last 3 months, I've been doing it formally.
Yeah.
So through the formal process of having, a diverse group of mentees coming through, the one thing I can say is that I'm firstly not a lawyer, but through hashtag #MeToo, we're collaborating with labor law experts, with mental health experts, even with psychiatrists who decided to come on board. So big shout out to our partners who will be, forging the way forward for us. I think often when we think of the word bullying, we often think about something in the high school arena. We think about the skinny person that was bullied or thrown in the bin and everyone stood around and sort of laughed or, it was something to be mocked at. But I think what has, I want to say, the light bulb that's gone off for me in the last 3 months, having coached and mentored over 50 young individuals during my, weekends and after hours, is really been about people not even knowing that they're being harassed or they're being bullied. And that for me is the saddest thing, right? So some of the examples that I'd like to put out there, and, once we bring on our legal experts, they'll help us to unpack that. But just from the experience, for example, not being promoted when you promised a promotion, right, is a form of harassment and bullying. Being given additional portfolios and being promised a promotion and you just sort of do the work without the requisite remuneration being matched or that promotion being honored is a form of bullying and harassment. The other thing is we always think that it's loud and there's going to be an audience and people are going to watch. But the really interesting part about this conversation is often it's done one-on-one. And I've also noticed that often, because I've also been looking at some of the evidence that's been coming through from my mentees, is around the fact that it's often done so subtly. There's almost an art in terms of how subtly it's done. And I must say, Zinsha and we grew up in small towns. When you grow up in a small town, I'm sure we all resonate with this. What you see is what you get. It's integrity. People are so honest. People are so happy for your growth. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of resources around me, but I did grow up in a very loving community. So I guess I wasn't also, aligned with the fact that when someone says something now, I need to record it and I need to send it back to them and I need to send notes. Because I grew up with a lot of trust and love and nurturing in the little community that I grew up in. But what I'm starting to notice through my mentees' interactions is that people are struggling. Women are struggling out there. And it's just, I thought it was really apt to have this conversation today on International Women's Day when we all are saying Happy International Women's Day. So there's a part that we're happy about. But I think I wanted to use my voice, my platform, my social reach today to come on here with Zinsha, a fellow CA, and say that, there's a huge number or percentage of women that are not being treated well, that are not being paid according to what their peers are getting. Sometimes it's hard to prove, so that's a challenge. Even the one-on-one interactions when someone is nasty to you or they start attacking you in various aspects is often done one-on-one. And I think that is what makes proving the workplace harassment and bullying, even the sexual harassment, very difficult because it's not being done in a full yard where all of the people that are around there could say yes, from their 10 people would say yes, I've seen that. But I think one of the most disturbing things that I've also been aware of is what we call the bystander effect. And those are people that stand by, you think they have your back, you think that they're there to support you. And they just stand back, wash their hands off and, turn a blind eye. And the other thing is I was recently on Worldwide Chartered Accountants together with the CIPA to speak about about my experiences
Yeah.
with workplace bullying, with harassment. And we had a really deep conversation. And if you have a chance, you can head across to the Chartered Accountants Worldwide and take a look at that as well. But Zinsha, I've just given some very high level examples from
Yeah.
my mentees. And I think it's important to actually, start learning more about it so that when it happens to you, firstly, hey, something is not right here, and now I need to take steps, which we'll talk about later on in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Kobini. And yeah, I think I also did my own, additional
Right,
research because I've been dealing with this
right.
topic now
Yes.
from the people that I talk to, and it's something common. I think a lot of people are unhappy at work. I was just telling you the other day that we even have memes. I like sharing jokes and memes about workplace things that happen, but we laugh about it.
Yes.
But these things are serious. The reality is that
Correct.
a majority of people are just unhappy at work, and one of the reasons is the bullying that takes place in the workplace, and in many cases people don't even know. And from my research, some of the examples, because people might not know, so we're just empowering people to even know what
Yes.
is workplace bullying. Some
Correct.
of the examples, you have targeted practical jokes, those jokes that people make as if it's a joke but it's not
Mm.
really a joke.
And you don't find it
It's
funny. They find it
yeah,
funny, but
and it's
you don't
offensive
find
to
it
you.
funny.
Yeah. So
Mm.
those things, that is workplace bullying, and being purposefully misled about a task
Yes.
or a deadline. That is workplace
Mm.
bullying, guys. I was also shocked when I did my research around this too. What is workplace bullying. So I'll just give you some examples. Humiliation
Mm.
sometimes, public
Yes.
humiliation and verbal abuse, excessive performance monitoring, and just overly harsh or unjust criticism. All those things, guys, they are workplace bullying, and you'll find that a lot of people have experienced it. And
Mm.
yeah, we do encourage you to just add comments there to tell us about your experiences or something that you know about it, because we're all learning here about these experiences. So empower us today by adding comments and let us know what really this is. So it's just that there's a lot really that happens when it comes to workplace bullying. And there's something that I learned yesterday, that there's institutional bullying, where a
Wow.
practice is just allowed in the workplace, where it's just a
Wow.
norm. For example, when harassment or bullying happens, it's just accepted. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a norm.
Mm.
So those are the
Mm.
things that we are, dealing with. And especially, unfortunately, I'm going to expose the auditing space. But, it's a very stressful environment in the auditing space, in
Yes.
general, across around the world. And sometimes there is forced overtime that is unpaid. Even that is workplace
Wow.
bullying. And I didn't know that. But those are some of the examples. So there's just a lot that we're dealing with in this topic. I think you spoke about how we think that bullying has to do with the things that we experience, at school, or things that we see at school,
Mm.
where
Mm.
someone will be bullied because they are too thin or too big or whatever. And I think we've seen from psychologists, they tell us that those children, I'm talking about school now, those children who
Yes.
bully others,
Yes.
it's actually because they've got their own issues that they are dealing with, their own, insecurities,
Mm.
their own, just feelings of powerlessness, and the need for control. That is what researchers and psychologists have told us about the children who bully other people, or those who just cause harm to other people. Do you think this is the case in the workplace, where,
Mm.
those who bully others have those feelings, those insecurities, and that powerlessness and all of that? And if
Mm.
yes, how should leaders deal with this? Because we do have leaders, unfortunately, who bully others.
Mm.
But if these are the root causes, what should be done? For example,
Mm.
I'm a leader. I don't know. I might be bullying
Right.
people, and I'm not even
Mm.
aware. I might be bullying people because of my own, internal, issues and things that I need to deal with, my own insecurities, my own feelings of powerlessness.
Yeah.
So what's your advice really? Firstly, do you think this is something that's affecting leaders or managers, or supervisors, and what can be done about this? Because, if, for example, your boss is bullying you, sometimes it's a powerless situation, but can we give advice to leaders now, the supervisors, the managers? Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. I'm going to leverage on my personal experience. I want to say 95% of the people that I've reported to, I've been incredibly blessed. I don't know if I manifested it, but I had incredible leaders that would support me, that would go into promotion discussions, go into increased discussions, force
Yeah,
me, have those fights and make sure that I'm always at the top, exceeding expectations. And I'm
mm,
talking about the 95% of my experience.
yeah,
And I think throughout your life, no matter where you go, you never forget those leaders that truly stood behind you. And it didn't mean that
mm,
we didn't have difficult conversations.
mm,
And I think that's where we need to also draw the line between someone trying to offer you constructive criticism, which I'm definitely open to,
yeah,
and then the fine line between when that becomes bullying, or the difference between constructive criticism as your boss trying to help you grow versus, the bullying aspect. So the
yeah,
95% that I talk about, were from the leading companies that I've been honored to work
mm,
for. I could have open conversations with them. If I wasn't doing too well, I could, highlight and get their support. And I think the one thing that was really instrumental across all of them was that they would constantly motivate me. They would constantly pick me up. They would not take one little mistake that I made, because as human beings, you're going to make mistakes. They would
yeah,
not take that one mistake and now start to use it as a tool to harass you, to attack you, to use it as an instrument to
mm,
get people to mob you. Because another thing that I learned as well in the past few months is this term called mobbing. So often
okay,
when you've got a workplace bully, they don't operate alone, right? They
mm,
will first decide that something about you doesn't resonate with them. And often it's because you've got a personality that you speak up, you're honest, you're
mm,
truthful, and that
mm,
unfortunately does not resonate with a lot of leaders.
yeah,
Once they
yeah,
find that kind of soft spot, then they start, I want to say, recruiting. So they start getting other leaders on that same boat and make all of
mm,
them sort of hate you or have this dislike towards you.
mm,
And I want to say, unfortunately, the 5% of leaders that I've experienced in my own personal career,
yeah,
that was the
yeah,
kind of, I want to say, behaviors that were
mm,
displayed.
mm,
Really disrespectful, would just speak to you in any manner, would caucus
mm,
people. So you go into a meeting thinking it was just you and your so-called manager, and then suddenly you see 5 other people all
mm,
arguing with your manager when he's meant to be on your side.
yeah,
And I think just, that overly critical aspect is fine
mm,
if you got a leader that really understands what it is they're doing. The challenge is
mm,
when you've got leaders that, are still trying to find their feet, which is not a bad thing and which is not
mm,
illegal. But I think that good leadership is about firstly understanding what your team does,
yeah,
being able to understand the granular aspects of what your team does, and then support them. You can't be standing 10 miles away and trying to tell leaders what they need to do. And the other thing I've also noticed is we think that workplace bullying and harassment happens to people that are only very junior. I can promise you that is not the case. It's
yeah, yeah,
sometimes senior people that are facing the most, that are smiling through it, that are forced to smile through it.
yeah,
Because I mean, the truth of the matter is, you spoke earlier about sort of institutional bullying and harassment, and I
mm,
just use the word bullying and harassment interchangeably. So
yeah,
apologies
yeah,
for anyone who I may not be representing it correctly to, but there are legal terminologies per labor law that you can go up and read up. There's a
yeah,
whole list of what it is you need to be looking at. So please do that research.
yeah,
When you spoke about institutional bullying and harassment, I think that's really where they talk about the culture, because
yeah,
there's a culture of saying if someone is doing something wrong, we're going to protect them. We're all going to get together again and we're going to say, no, 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 that person isn't like that. That person is amazing. They've gotten such great feedback. Look at their performance. Look at their
yeah,
track record. And I think when a company does that, for me, it shows that lack of openness, transparency, and
yeah,
fairness, because you need to be able to discipline your leaders if they're not doing good by other leaders.
yeah,
I don't think that that is up for negotiation,
yeah,
but also just an opportunity to shout out to the 95% of the good leaders that I just mentioned. And,
mm,
to corporate SA, if you're listening to this, if someone is resonating with this, and you have thoughts on how you can help us make the space a better place, would love to hear your thoughts. I'd love your DMs. We're always looking for great partners to collaborate with us as well. You know, the 95% of the leaders is what I choose to resonate with, what I choose to become, because I was treated well, I was valued, I was respected. People that attack your qualifications, that attack you as a woman, that attack you personally, those are not good leaders. That expect you to be disrespected as a woman, and especially on International Women's Day, when you watch on LinkedIn some of these abusers writing notes of Happy Women's Day, Happy International Women's Day. It really is quite a heartbreaking experience for me. I hope that answers some of the questions.
No, it certainly does, Corini. And I think initially you also spoke about difficult conversations when you were speaking about the fact that you're fortunate to have great leaders. And that's also my story, which is why I'm able to coach other people. I've been led by, amazing people. And we do, I also have now more than 12 years experience. And we do have, some of those instances where we deal with people who are bullies, but the majority of the people who have met me, they are just amazing. I've learned a lot from them. But one thing also that contributes to, this good relationship between yourself and your boss, it's those difficult conversations that sometimes we shy away from. And this is something that we talk about a lot with the people that we coach. Having those difficult conversations, you can't keep quiet if there's something you're uncomfortable with. Speak to your boss, so that there's that relationship that we all want with the people that we work with. So I think that's one of the things really that we'd like to encourage the people here, that those difficult conversations should happen. I'm just going to divert a bit from my notes. I saw a comment that says, how do you differentiate, it's from Zamo, how do you differentiate between constructive criticism or feedback and someone being too harsh, which could possibly be regarded as bullying? And indeed, Zamo, I think from the research that I did, harsh criticism is actually bullying. It is defined as bullying. Criticism or feedback, if I might put it that way, it has to be constructive. If someone is giving you feedback, it has to be direct. The first thing, actually, it has to be done, formally. I often see that when you do feedback formally, then, you're actually developing that person. So it has to be done formally, one-on-one, and you have to just give a person feedback and tell them, okay, so I gave you this task, if it's task related, and this is what you did. And you always have to start with something positive. I think that's what we are all taught, that they call it a sandwich approach. Start with something positive, give that feedback, and then go to the areas where you would like this person to improve. Because whenever you're giving someone feedback, you're actually developing them. You don't want to put them down and make them feel bad about themselves, but you want them to actually learn from that mistake and develop them, so that next time they do better. And constructive feedback, it's that where you firstly highlight the things that someone is good at, and then you highlight then your concerns that, okay, in this area, I think this is what you still need to do. And it can't just be a case where you're just pointing out everything that the person is doing wrong. You also need to coach them, because coaching has to happen in the workplace. Coach them and tell them how they need to do a particular task. So for me, that is really constructive feedback. And anything other than that, where someone will just shout at you or they are just harsh, that is regarded as bullying. But Corini, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think it's a great question there, because when you give someone constructive criticism, obviously they don't feel amazing, right? But there's a solution that you're coming to them with. Where you're just attacking someone without presenting a solution to them and making it their problem. So you're saying, you can't do this, but, I can help you. Whereas, these are your areas of improvement. Here's evidence, which I think is very important when you're giving constructive criticism. It's not a feeling like I'm hungry today or I like the color blue. It shouldn't be based on a feeling. It should be based on the fact that these are the 3 emails that I've reviewed. This is where you need to improve on all of them. Point 1, point 2, point 3. Let me know what I can do as a leader to support you. I'm always here to support you if you need additional support. But just saying, here's where you've gone off, and leaving the poor person to kind of figure out for themselves is definitely not best practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that answers your question there, Zamo. And then there's another one that says, is deliberately giving someone a heavier workload than
Mm.
everyone else considered bullying? And this is something that we see a
A lot,
lot,
a lot.
especially as, in the CA profession. If you do great work and you are amazing at your job, you're going to be given more work. You're going to be rewarded with more work. I often laugh
No.
about it because it's funny, but it's actually not funny. If you're doing great, and you're good at your job, you finish your tasks earlier than others, they're going to allocate more work for you. Yeah, but it's not nice. So tell us about that, Kovini.
Yeah.
Is that considered bullying?
I
Because
don't
sometimes,
think so. The way the
Mhm.
question is written, if I'm given additional work, I'm assuming you asked me if I can do the additional work. And maybe
Yeah.
I've just become so excellent at my skill because I've been doing it for 15 years, very much like I guess a lot of people watching
Mm.
this, that I say, okay, I'll take on the additional workload, but we don't work at the Red Cross, right? No disrespect to
Yeah.
the Red Cross, but there now needs to be recognition that's
Yeah.
formal, and there needs to be remuneration that is aligned with best practice and external best practices
Mm.
to compensate you. If you
Mm.
offer me the portfolio and I say, listen, I can't handle my own workload, rather give it to someone else, and you still push it onto me, then in my mind you're starting to border on that you're setting me up for failure.
Mm.
And I think that's
Mm.
the difference we need to just unpack their CT motivator.
Yeah.
I would definitely, if you're capable, you're happy, there's people that have different capabilities and we don't judge. But there are some people that are generally high performers and they don't mind taking on 2 portfolios,
Yeah.
3 portfolios, they just handle it well. But there needs to be that remuneration or that recognition to
Yeah.
align you to say you're doing more work and here's something
Right.
more for you so that it feels a little bit more fair, or else you should be hiring someone else and paying them a full salary to do that additional work.
Yeah. No, I think that is excellent. Excellent. I hope it answers you there, CT motivator. I
Motivation.
hope your question is answered there. No, thank you for that. Another thing I wanted to ask now, going back to bullying, what are some of the effects on the victims? Yeah, because we
Mm,
know that a lot of people are being bullied in the workplace. That is a fact.
correct.
What are some of the
Correct.
effects on the
Fact.
victims? I think with
Mm,
people that I have dealt with, it's mostly been, the mental wellness aspect of it, where it just affects their mental health, depending on the type of bullying that has happened, but it just affects their mental health. It affects their confidence. Yeah, and it also, when your mental health is affected in the workplace, you cannot produce, good work. You cannot produce 100%. So it does have an impact on, the level of work that you are putting out there for your boss or for your workplace. But that's what I've noticed. The
mm.
biggest one is mental health. So, what are some of the effects really on the victims that you have noted?
I just want to highlight a cycle that is becoming, like, if I don't speak about it on this, I wouldn't feel good
Mm,
tonight when I go to sleep.
yeah,
Um, it's a cycle often that women of color face in organizations, right? And there's been various studies that have been conducted in this
yeah,
respect. So you come into an organization as a woman of color, bringing in your expert skills. For the first few years, you are treated amazingly. They call it the honeymoon period. Everyone just loves you. They love it, brings unique expertise.
mm,
People respect you.
mm,
People promote you. You're treated well. And then after a while, you realize, hey, there's a few things in this particular organization, and I want to speak up about it because that's what my soul tells me today. That's what my integrity tells me to do. So you speak up about a matter. And from that moment that you speak up on that matter, you start to become targeted because we
mm,
come back to the workplace bullying, we come back to the mobbing that I spoke about that then happens.
yeah,
And what happens is because of the emotional abuse that you're now faced with, because everyone's now critiquing your work. Previously, there was none of that.
yeah,
Everyone's starting to dig deep into what you're doing. Previously, you were amazing before you raised a particular issue of
yeah,
concern. And then it starts to weigh on your self-esteem. And I think as women of color, generally, many of us, grew up in small towns, we've come to big cities, we're doing incredible work. We
mm,
struggle with the imposter syndrome. And for many of us, we've managed to work through that through the 10 or the 15 years that we've, been through. And now we're in a space where those 15 years have passed and we're now feeling pretty confident in who we are and what we're doing. We're also matured in terms from an age perspective. And now we're in a space where your self-esteem is getting hit down. You're being gaslighted. So for those who don't know, the word is gaslighting. The word around gaslighting is really where people devalidate your experiences. So if you're feeling a certain way, or you were, raised your voice about something, or you're raising the part about where you need additional resources, people come on there and say, no, it's not, your workload is not too much, and I didn't mean this, and we didn't mean that when we said it. It was all just, the way that you interpreted it. So they actually make you feel like you're going crazy, for lack of a better word. That is what gaslighting is. It's meant to create doubt in your mind. And for someone personally who has had to overcome the imposter syndrome, I've got to say that when something hits your self-esteem and hits your soul, it becomes a very deep and dark place for you to live in if you don't have the right level of support. And that is why you see a lot of women going through the cycle of they're in this dark place where suddenly no one loves them. Suddenly no one respects them. Suddenly their work is the worst thing they've ever seen. And that's how they tend to kind of, I want to say, be worked out or slowly, subtly be pushed out. And I think that is where the mental health aspect comes about. And I wanted to use this platform to just highlight that these are things that are happening every single day, and they are happening to women in South Africa. They're happening to all women of color, and just all women that are struggling with this particular situation.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And yeah, you are correct, especially with us who are coming from, rural backgrounds. We actually do struggle a lot with imposter syndrome. It's something that we've managed to overcome, as you said, but a lot of the people that we mentor or coach, it's really something big that we struggle with. Yeah. And I think on top of the bullying now that takes place, imagine a bullying that takes place and it happens to someone who's already struggling with imposter syndrome. You can just, imagine the effect that it has on the person's mental health. So those are some of the effects. And I would advise people, which is something that we've shared previously, therapy. Sometimes we actually do need to attend therapy just to deal with some of the issues that we face in the workplace. So that work doesn't consume us, so that we are not, somewhere spending a day with family, but we're just worried, we're stressed about work. So we need those tools, such as therapy, to deal with some of these things, because they do affect a lot of us. I saw another question. It wasn't a question, it was a comment. It says I've been bullied twice in the workplace, and honestly, I guess you're saying I couldn't function at all in my professional life and in my personal life. It's when I started to fall that I realized that I needed to leave. Yeah, which is a reality really for many, many people, especially women, where you can actually see that, whatever is happening at work is now affecting your personal life as well, and you're not able to function. Because if your mental health really is affected in a negative way, you cannot, it's impossible for you to perform, as you should in the workplace. I'm noting there, Nontle, that you said you needed to leave, which is something that we see a lot, because in these environments where there's nothing that is being done about bullying, where it's institutional bullying that is taking place, we see a high turnover rate. It's something that happens. But, I think with the coaching that we do, we don't encourage people to leave, especially in South Africa. Firstly, the employment rate, it's very, there's high unemployment rate in South Africa. So we don't encourage people to leave their workplaces unless it's become extremely toxic. Then we should. But we want people to be empowered to speak about these things, to speak up and raise their voices. And I've always said that a lot of leaders are not, unreasonable. And sometimes people who bully are not even aware that, their action is actually negatively affecting others. So it's a matter of just having those difficult conversations, the one-on-ones. Sometimes that helps, because if you do that, then the behavior might change. So, that is what we want to encourage women out there, to stand up for themselves, to speak up. So I hope this helps, Nontle. Okay, there seems to be another comment from CT Motivator. There seems to be a fear of speaking against bullying for fear of victimization. Especially when it's
Good
done
one.
by authorities or leaders. What kind of advice would you give in this regard? Yeah, that's a
Sure,
tough one. I'm giving it to you,
sure.
Kobe.
That's the tough one. But firstly, I just want to say, Nonchli, a big shout out to you, my darling. I know that you're a boss babe of South Africa as
Yeah.
well. Please, I would like to know more about your story. If you don't mind sending a direct message. I find understanding people's personal stories enables me and Zinshli and our
Yeah.
whole coaching community really to do better.
Yeah.
When we understand the real life situations that women are facing, we're able to tailor our content and our strategy to be able to help you to get to a situation that you don't leave. And I think the fact that we're also in such high unemployment rates in South Africa also, I guess, I want to say helps to elevate the bullying, because you know that often, there's nowhere for you to go,
You
or
don't have
it's
other
going to take you a
options.
really long time to find another role, or we're going to give you a really bad reference, so you're stuck with us forever. So I think those
Yeah.
are very important things to also just note. But Nonchli, a big shout out to you for being a survivor.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear more of your detailed story. I'm going to quickly look at the other one from CT Motivator. I think it's a very relevant question. There seems to be a fear. I think this is where it comes down to often what, HR professionals and one of my personal mentors as well in the DEI space. Her name is Nene Malofi. If you haven't heard of her, please go out and find her and follow and like. She is really a DEI HR consulting company. And she talks a lot about psychological safety. And psychological safety is something that's got to stem from the top of an organization, so that when you speak up about something and you've got the evidence to support it, which I think is very important, and I'm going to talk about that in terms of strategy shortly, is that, there's two things you can do when you're facing bullying and harassment. Right? The first thing is you're going to accept it, you're going to put your head down, you're going to work. And the other thing is you're going to make a decision for yourself and for others that you want to speak up about this, situation. I think before you speak up, this is where the strategy part comes in. Before you speak up, I think it's important to firstly make sure that your work is great, right?
Yeah.
You've got evidence that your work, your performance can't be thrown against you, because a lot of my mentees have shared that the minute they speak up is, suddenly their performance is like this, and then suddenly it drops, which, as we know, is quite impossible, right? If you understand the type of work that professionals do. It can't suddenly drop, right? So that's not a real thing in my mind.
Yes.
So I think the first thing for you to do from a strategy perspective is to make sure that you've got evidence of how great your work is, how great you're performing. You've got evidence of the bonuses you've been given. You would never be given a bonus if your work sucks, right? Let's be honest. You would never be given an increase if your work was terrible. So make sure that you've got that, what I call like a bundle of evidence in your favor, firstly, right? And then the second thing I'd like you to do is, and this is where the biggest part of my strategy consulting comes in, guys, it's stuck to send a note every time to say, this is what we discussed as per our discussion 1, 2, 3, 4. But unfortunately, if you are in certain environments where there's a fear of speaking up, there's a fear that you're going to be gaslighted because someone's going to come to you in 2 weeks and say, I didn't approve that resource. No, you misunderstood me. And then you start to feel like maybe I'm going crazy here. Maybe I misunderstood. You actually start to doubt yourself.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that if you're feeling that there's this target on your back, there's this mobbing happening, and then people say, oh, well, how do I know? Guys, your intuition is a very powerful tool. When it speaks to you, this part here in your solar plexus, I'm going to stand up, this part here that they call butterflies in your tummy, or you feel like something is just not right with this person. There's change, the energy has changed to me. These few people are now starting to become a lot more picky. What I want to say to you is that you're not imagining it. If you're feeling this way, then I'm going to ask you to start keeping the evidence bundle that I spoke about, number one. And number two, start sending notes back and forth. Per our discussion, 1, 2, 3, 4 is what we've discussed, what we've agreed on, what we've confirmed. Dear person X, if I missed anything, please let me know. It's going to feel stupid in the beginning, but you can thank me later on. That's all I can say for now. So when you're feeling that you're becoming attacked, this person is behaving in an irrational and aggressive manner, it's not the person normal way of behaving, there's a very good chance that your gut is giving you a sign that something isn't right. And now you need to start to take steps to protect yourself so that if at a later stage the performance we spoke about suddenly drops, which is not possible,
Yeah.
you start to create evidence that you can then say, listen, I'm feeling like I'm victimized because this is what I was given, this is my bonus, this is my performance, this is my performance review. You know, and on X date, when I raised something, from the following dates after, I noticed that suddenly the feedback was that my performance had suddenly dropped.
Yeah.
So very, very important that you invest in yourself. If you find yourself in a toxic environment, you find yourself with leaders that don't support you, or you find yourself where you're just going to be fearful, do the pre-homework before you say, oh, I'm a victim. Make sure you start almost 6 months before you raise that there's an issue. Don't just wake up one morning and say, today I'm going to, you know, take on this particular environment. Be strategic about what you're doing. Keep all your evidence for at least 6 months. And then I'd suggest that you formally raise a grievance and go through the full process and seek legal advice, guys, before you even log that grievance. All right? Go get a lawyer. I've used a ton of them that I've referred to my mentees. There's Michaela from Labor Law. There's Sister-in-Law. There's a ton of legal people out there for around 850 Rand an hour. They could give you advice that could be life-changing for your career. I'm going to leave it right there because I get emotional about this topic.
Me too, Kobini. And you're raising a very valid point about lawyers, hey? I've got my own lawyer.
As we should, as we all
He's
should.
become a friend now. So whenever I have a question, I'll just pop him a WhatsApp. What should I do here? So it's always good to just have, you know, that support because it's something I've also been talking about with my other friend, Caesar, who I'm going to invite also on an Instagram Live since I seem to be doing this thing now. You know, we spoke about this thing and, you know, HR, because a lot of people, you know, expect to be represented by HR if these issues arise. But to be honest, HR will always side with your boss. That is the cases that we've seen because HR wants to protect the organization. So those are the things that we see. So it's always good to have that, you know, external legal backing if you're dealing with a situation like this. And again, Kobini, you are raising a very important point. You know, you can't just say, oh, I'm aggrieved, I'm just going to raise a grievance, and you just don't have a proper process that you're going to follow. But also, I think you need to make sure that you raise those things if you know that really your performance is up to scratch, so that really no one can raise anything about you or your performance, because it's really impossible for your performance to be up there, and then as soon as you raise a grievance, then all of a sudden they saying your performance has now dropped. That is a sign of victimization. They are now, you know, victimizing you and saying that your performance is low just because you've raised a concern. So that is victimization and something that we can raise with HR. Yes, we raise it with HR, but I think, you know, having those external legal experts also help. Yeah. Do you have anything more to say there?
I'm just going to say that we need to also, like you say, now your lawyer has become your friend. I've got about 6 friends that actually went on to study law, and they all grew up in the same community, and there's about 7 of us that went on to do the CA profession. So I also find it very helpful if I'm in a situation, I get a funny email, I'm not sure how to deal with it. One point in my career, I ended up with an email that was written in capital letters, that was written in red. Now, anyone knows that that is, you know, someone screaming at you, someone trying to intimidate you. I think it's very, very helpful to have, you know, a dedicated lawyer that understands your situation, especially if you're starting to feel enhanced pressure after raising a matter. Because it never happens when you fight, right? It only happens when you decide to speak up about something. And at the end of the day, the role of HR and IR, this is not a secret that I'm sharing, is to protect the company from risk. Very much like I'm a risk manager, and I've been a consultant and I've done other aspects of risk. It is to protect the company from risk. So it is very important to have someone who is objective, that you've got on your side, that can guide you. And often you've got to go through the HR, the IR process, the full grievance process. You've got to complete that. before taking steps externally in order to be able to support yourself and not jeopardize your career.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I had other questions to ask, but I feel like we need to respond to the comments.
Let's respond to the comments. I prefer that.
There's a comment there from Zamo. Do you want to take that? And I
Yeah, it's
think
so
this is
difficult
speaking
to
about
raise
that
concerns
institutional
and
belief.
issues in an environment where you have a problem. What has become an unwritten culture and everyone has accepted it. Yeah. Sure, Zama. There's a lot of people asking me a lot of soul questions here today, Sincha. I'm sure you can agree with that as well. I'm sure our other coaches, part of our team, can also agree with that. Yeah, I think again it comes down to the culture. And what I'd like to share with you is that if you're starting to job search or you're starting to go into the market, I think it's very important when you're having that interview. People only think that the interview is about the company asking you questions. I think what's become really important is that you also ask those questions back. What is the culture like? Speak to other people in the organization that are working there for years. Understand a little bit more. Often your friends will guide you towards the right environment because they know you well. They know your values, they know your morals, they know where you're going to enter a space and there's going to be this misalignment. It's almost going to be like two, I want to say, blocks of brick that are constantly dragging against each other. Unfortunately, culture is not something that you can click a finger and change. But the one thing that I can say is that myself getting mentored and getting coached by incredible industry leaders has helped me to deal with situations where the culture has not been great. I think what Zinsha and I and the rest of the coaches will be sharing over the next few months is really about the capabilities that you can grow within yourself to be able to deal with this until something better comes along, if that something better comes along. But my personal goal is that women should not be forced out of an organization. You should not be bullied, harassed, treated poorly, and then feel like there's no other option and now I need to leave. And that's really what #Me3 as well as the coaches are trying to achieve, that don't ever get to a space where you feel like that's the only option. Because I promise you, there are other options, and that's what we're planning to share over the next few weeks. Therapy is definitely number one on that list. Get a therapist, speak to a therapist. If you need medication to support you, take it. Don't have a stigma around, oh my God, I could never be the person that takes medication. Medication could be life-changing for you. And I talk about this from a personal experience. So if you need it through a difficult time because you're going through a lot, people are just coming at you from all angles, that's not a normal thing for a human being to be able to deal with. So go out, get the therapy, get the legal assistance, book your session with your mentor, your coach. And between those three elements, I believe that you will create a powerful support system for you, for yourself, to be able to maneuver through the challenges that will constantly come. We can't change the challenges, guys. We can only find intelligent strategies to deal with it and make sure that we are not worked out of companies and not worked out of roles that we've worked so hard to enter.
Yeah, you're 100%. Thank you, Kobini. And indeed, we cannot be worked out of our jobs, guys. You know, our jobs, it's not only about a job, but it's our security. We're getting a salary, it affects our personal life. So we cannot allow situations to just drive us out of organizations. We have to speak up. You know, I think you also spoke about researching a company before joining. That is very important that you do that research. Ask around, ask people about the culture, because an organization's culture will definitely affect your well-being. So it's important that even before you join, you need to just ask around before you even apply, actually, you know, because, and then unfortunately, with cultures, as Kovini has said, it's difficult to change a culture, but you know, we are driving change. Even with these conversations that we are having, we are driving change. We are just speaking about these topics loudly and boldly, so that you know, this thing, it doesn't become a norm. These behaviors, this bullying, it doesn't become a norm in organizations, and it starts here when we speak about these topics and we raise awareness, so that you know, people lead differently, so that people are more kinder, and so I think, through these initiatives, this is what we're trying to achieve. But also, just to respond to that question on my side as well, I think, yeah, especially when you grow professionally, you just have to have thick skin. So that is something we really need to have, because unfortunately we sometimes have to deal with these environments. But it's very important to have a thick skin. But again, I just want to emphasize speaking up. I think you just
Mm,
need to only speak up, stand up for yourself. Do not accept behavior, even if it's a norm or a culture, do not accept it. If there's something you are uncomfortable with, or there's something that is happening that doesn't make you feel good, do not bottle it in. Speak up, because a lot of the things that people do in the workplace, they would bottle something in, they would go to their friend and gossip about it. Oh,
mm,
this person did
mm.
this. And it becomes that's the only thing that happens, where you just gossip to your friends about how Zinhle has treated you. So if that is not really constructive, it's not productive. You need to actually confront the person who has, you know, bullied you, confront them and speak about it. Obviously, you cannot speak when your emotions are high. You just need to set
Very
a
true.
date to have a conversation, a one-on-one. I like one-on-one meetings, a one-on-one where you have these conversations. And in most cases, the situation should stop or improve. And if it doesn't, then that is a case where we then say, look elsewhere if there's certain behaviors that are just being tolerated and you are helpless. Okay. I hope that answers you, Zamo. But I think we really need to have thick skin. We need to be bold and speak up. And I think it applies. I've said it before. It applies everywhere, even in our personal lives. We just need to learn to communicate effectively, and that is something that we teach people, Kobini, when it comes to the coaching that we do. Effective communication. So that is very important. Yeah. So um, I think we've spoken about this, because I wanted to ask you what advice you have for people who are currently experiencing um bullying. How should they deal with it? In a way, we've spoken about it, having legal experts approaching, taking it up with HR, keeping the evidence, making sure that your performance cannot be questionable, all those things. But, do you have any other advice for people who are being bullied? Even advice for me, someone who's recently formalized my coaching, and I need to know, how do
Yes.
I advise my mentees when they tell me that they are being bullied? How should people respond
Mm.
to workplace bullying?
Um, I don't want to say it's like a game of chess, but sometimes it feels like that. I just want to add on to the tips that we've already spoken about, and that is, don't ever respond to an email when you're emotional or angry. I've learned this from my own coach and mentor, who's been mentoring for me for more than 10 years. Um, because I'm an empath, I feel things very deep, right? Um, Empaths are like light workers, if you haven't heard the term. So I feel emotions very strongly. Um, I
Mm,
also pick up very strongly when someone is lying to me, and that's kind of how my I want to say my emotion rises, my anger level rises, because you'll be looking at me saying something, and I can pick up in a very strong, the intuitive way that you're lying to me.
mm,
I decide not to respond to you at that point. Even if I get an angry email that's written to me, or someone is saying something to me, don't respond with emotion, because those are the kind of emails that will be pulled out and held against you at a later stage, and we don't want this, right? If someone else wants to express their emotion, their anger, their aggression, their hate towards women, let them do so. The best thing I can ask you to do is, when you get those emails that are really challenging, is to seek that legal advice. And that will be able to help you in terms of guiding you towards what needs to be said, and also what you don't owe anyone an explanation to. Because I think somewhere along the line we were told that the minute someone emailed us, we was emailing them back, they
mm,
must email us back. And that's where you get this ping pong effect on email. I personally hate it. So we need to stop that, because it raises emotions in us, and it raises emotions in this other person that's trying to attack us. The best form of defense is to get that legal expertise, and wait a while. Wait a while till you've consulted, you've thought about what you want to say, you've pulled up the evidence, and then respond. don't ever feel that if someone is trying to provoke you, because often I feel like it's the email